Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. So welcome to this regular meeting of the Board of Directors for Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space. My name is Yoriko Kishimoto, President of the Board of Directors. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:01. It is being held in person at our administrative office and by teleconference. So as members of the public, you can attend here in person or via Zoom, and instructions for submitting public comments are available on the agenda. So Madam Clerk, would you please call roll.
Director Christine Tucker.
Here.
Director Riffle.
Here.
President Kishimoto.
Here.
Director McNiven.
Here.
Director Sear.
Here.
Director Gleason.
Here.
Thank you. And Director Holman is absent. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see. Oh, how can I see if Director Gleason is raising his hand? Should I go on Zoom?
You can, I can keep an eye.
You can keep an eye in front of me. Okay, thank you. All right. We did come out of closed session and no reportable action. Yeah.
President Kishimoto, there was no reportable action from the closed session that we held just previous to this meeting, but I do have something to report out from a previous closed session.
Okay.
So pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.1A3, the board previously took an action to approve a settlement agreement, and now it's been fully executed. And now I can report out that on May 10th, 2023, the board voted 7-0 to authorize a settlement agreement with BHM Construction. The substance of the agreement was to resolve pending litigation regarding a construction claim from the administrative office remodel contract. And the agreement sets forth the timing and payment of a settlement payment made by the district to resolve the claim. The agreement is now fully executed and a copy is available in the general counsel's office. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And now is the time for oral communications. So this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on matters which are not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the district. And do we have
President Kishimoto, we do not have any oral comments.
Okay. On to special orders of the day. We have two staff members to introduce. First is Sarah Alaya, and
Good evening, Stefan Jaskulak, CFO. I'm very happy to announce or to introduce Sarah Araya as our new procurement program manager after a very competitive recruitment. She actually already started back in early April, but because of both of our travels, this seemed to be the best time to introduce her to you formally. She has worked in procurement in some very large companies previously, in like DocuSign, Genentech, and Meta. Even though it's not government, I do believe that her skill set is very transferable, as well as working in highly structured environments, such as we do with our procurement as well. And she's been making a positive contribution to procurement from day one, really. She's very excited, as she might mention in a minute, to start to work here at Midpen, and looks forward to working with everyone, meeting everyone. Takes a little time, to get settled in, to learn about all of our departments, what their needs are, how they work, what the procurement needs are, and how she can best support them. When she's not working, she likes to spend time cooking and baking. So I have high hopes for things showing up in the break room. She does it for friends and family, and I hope we can count ourselves to that. She also likes to spend time volunteering together with her husband at local animal shelters, advocating for rescue dogs and to help them get adopted. They have two rescue dogs, Polo and Rain, and enjoy hiking and walking in the Bay Area with them. So please help me welcome Sarah.
Good evening. It's really great to meet you all. I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, well,
Well, welcome.
welcome. Yeah,
Thank you.
we're delighted to have you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Board. Rebecca Wolf, HR Supervisor. I'm pleased to introduce Katie Gilmer, our new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist. After a highly competitive process, Katie was selected to help lead the charge on the district's DEI initiative. She will be part of the Human Resources Department and serve as Midpenn's subject matter expert in DEI. Katie has a bachelor's degree from Colorado State University and has worked in both startup and corporate environments and has gained the versatility and expertise to adapt to various situations. With over 10 years of experience combined in DEI, people operations, customer engagement, and engineering, she has honed her skills in relationship building, project management, and customer success. She brings her unique blend of professional and personal experiences to promote a more equitable and inclusive work environment. Katie is passionate about DEI and Midpenn's mission. Please join me in welcoming Katie to the district.
Thank you, Rebecca. I am honored and energized to be part of an organization that is allowing me to combine my passion for supporting diverse communities with my deep reverence for the land. And I'm looking forward to building upon the work that's already been done, embedding DEI into our culture, our organizational structure, and supporting our community. So I'm looking forward to what's ahead. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, always very, very exciting to welcome new members to our staff. So welcome, everybody. All right. Okay, on to the adoption of agenda. May I have a motion? Okay, we have a motion and second, and roll call, please.
Director Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Ripple,
Yes.
President Kishimoto,
Yes.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Seer,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passed.
Okay. Okay, let's see, we actually have quite a long agenda tonight. Six items are on the consent calendar. And so is there any board member or member of the public that wanted to comment or speak on or pull these? And I don't see any requests. Is there any public comments?
We do not have any public comment, and I'm sorry, Director Gleason, I know you're having issues with raising your hand, so for right now, until we fix the issue, if you may please go ahead and unmute yourself until we are able to fix that issue.
Okay, thanks. Director Seer, I move adoption of the consent calendar. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Director Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Ripple,
Yes.
President Kishimoto,
Yes.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Seer,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, very good. Okay, as I said, we have 4 business items today. So yeah, we'll have well, of course, it's important to ask the questions you need, but we will also keep an eye on the clock. And the first item is our controller's report.
Okay, this is Mike Foster, the controller, the opposite of a new employee. I guess I can. Look at that. Okay, so what's on the screen right now is my review of this current year. I find it impossible to consider the budget for the next year without understanding what happened this year. So that's what first thing I always put together here. So this is the first column here is what I projected a year ago at last year's controller meeting presented. And the second column is the forecast I made last month of the spending and revenues for this year. And then the variance there is the third column. And then out in the far end, I show the latest amended budget. Of course, that's not the original budget or even close to the original budget, but it's what you saw. So I'm just showing that as something that maybe you can relate to better than my numbers. But anyway, first of all, the thing to note is that we expected when we adopted the budget last year, and I did my forecast, we assumed that the sale of Distil 330 Distil would occur in June. And of course, it didn't occur in June, it occurred in August. And so that was a positive variance this year, but it was, of course, exactly as expected. But excluding that $10.4 million unbudgeted for this current year, we're about $2 million above the original projection, which I believe was the budget. The two categories that are exceeding the projection and budget are tax revenue, mainly supplemental tax revenue and redevelopment revenue. The other revenues are pretty much the ones that we can predict, have any information to predict. We're pretty much on track. But supplemental is surprisingly strong this year, and redevelopment also was surprisingly strong. So revenue was up 9%. 64 million was the estimate I made in May. It's probably going to exceed that by some amount, based on there's always some surprises in June because the commercial real estate gets into the calculation for the first time, and that's sometimes a surprise with all the vacancies and things like that, and could be a negative surprise, but we'll see. Interest income, of course, exceeded the forecast because number one, we spent less money, and number two, interest rates went up dramatically. So that's a positive thing for us. So on the spending, not surprising, not unusual, I should say, that our operating expenses are running about 4 million, 10% less than budgeted. And of course, we're going to use some of that underspending to prepay pensions, as we've been doing. I put $1 million in here because I didn't know what we're going to do, and Stefan actually recommended $1.5 million, which is wonderful. And so I fully supported that. So that's good. The spending also was the spending actually was up about 15% in operating over the prior year, but the budget was pretty heroic in terms of spending. In terms of capital spending, we delayed, or things were delayed for us, of about $4 million worth of spending, and most of that is in the budget for this year. And then in debt service, it was unusually high because we used about 60% of the proceeds of the sale of Distil, $6.4 million, to prepay some debt, our 2017 parity bonds. So the cash actually increased in the year, is increasing in the year about $17 million, which is nice to have. So that's in the general fund. So let's now look at what happened in MAA. Now, what happened in our MAA program is that I expected we were going to spend more, and we didn't. And so we didn't need to issue more bonds. So the assumption that I made was that we would issue about 32 million of bonds, and we didn't need to do that. So that's a difference. That wasn't in the budget. That was just something I dreamed up. In terms of the land purchases, I had 20 million in there. That included Johnson Ranch. And of course, Johnson Ranch is not being purchased this year. But we are, if South Cal closes in June, which I haven't been told it's not going to close in June, but it's only 2 weeks left. So we'll see. We'll spend 17 million on land acquisition this year, which is a really healthy sum, all M&A acquisitions. And that's covered, of course, by 9.9 million of grants on Cloverdale. So of this 10.8 here in grant income, 9.9 is Cloverdale. So, over 90% of it. In terms of non-land acquisition spending for MAA, was very low this year. due to multiple factors, not enough people, storm damage, other, permitting delays, whatever. But it's that's the second year in a row that we spent less than $6 million on MAA. And I think that that's got to be addressed in the FOSSum. We got to have more people. It's ridiculous that we don't spend at least 10 million a year on MAA, and we haven't been able to do that. We just haven't been staffed enough or focused enough on that. So you'll see in my 30-year projection that we do have the money to spend 10 to 11 million a year. So there's no reason not to do that. Those are supposed to be the highest priority projects we have. So anyway, what I expect that we'll end the year in our bond proceeds about 16 million. Now that includes 5.1 million of 2015 taxable bonds, which is a separate category that we don't need to spend. There's no 3-year requirement. There's no arbitrage requirement. So we can either spend that money or hold it for later. And it includes this 4.5 million of debt service funds, which are only spendable on debt service. So we're going to end the year with about 7 million of 2018 bond proceeds left. So it's pretty obvious that we're going to need to have a bond issue next year with only 7 million left. If we don't spend unless we decide to spend the remaining 2015 taxable proceeds. So now I'm willing to go into this year. Okay, the first column here is the budget. It was the budget presented in May, and I believe it is the final budget. I checked it. It looks like it's still the budget. So we're going to begin the year with about $78 million in the general fund. And I'm expecting the budget shows $66.5 million tax revenue, but that was set back in April. And I've since revised my forecast up to 67 million. At least I did in May. It'd probably be higher if I did it here in June. But anyway, that's up about 5% over this year. And I'm assuming that supplemental tax revenue and redevelopment revenue will not surprise on the upside again, but we'll see. Those are unpredictable, at least by me. In terms of grant income, that's an interesting case. The 1.6 million that's budgeted is almost all related to the fire resiliency program, but it's my understanding that we expect some grant money from FEMA. And so I've put in $2 million expected proceeds from FEMA into my projection for next year. And then down on the spending, the budget is 45.5 million of OpEx, and that's would represent an increase of 18% over our actual spending this year, not over the budget, but over the actual rate of spending. And that's pretty heroic, but I know that we've been hiring lots of people lately, both permanent people and interns and seasonals. So we seem to be making good progress there. So I've discounted that 2% just for fun, but because we've never spent the OpEx budget in any of the 45 years that I've been here. So on the CapEx. The CapEx for the general fund is about $10 million, broken into two categories here: the storm damage related CapEx and the what I call other CapEx, kind of normal general fund CapEx. And then general fund debt service is about 8.9 million this year. So I'm expecting that in the general fund that we're going to have a positive cash flow of about $12 million. The budget is 8. And I expect it'll be more like 12. So that's very, very positive. All right, going into the MAA, as I mentioned before, we're going to go into the year with about 16 million of overall bond proceeds, broken into 3 categories: 2015, the 2018, and the debt service revenue funds. And that's not enough, obviously, to cover what we're planning to spend this year. And so I'm projecting a modest $25 million bond issue. Obviously, we'll decide that'll be based on what our 3-year look ahead is, net of grants, which of course have been very high lately. And I'm assuming we will not use the 2015 proceeds, because otherwise I think the bond issue would be too small to, wouldn't be, I'd rather it be at least 25 million. And we'll probably get a modest bond premium on that. Currently, the AAA tax, the AAA yield is currently for bonds with an average life of 15 to 18 years is about 3%. So it's really not such a bad time to be issuing bonds. Of course, they're covered by future revenue anyway. In terms of grant revenue, the budget is 4.8 million of grant revenue, and that breaks down into 3.4 million that's related to Highway 17 planning activity, crossing planning activity, and 1.4 million for Bear Creek Redwoods Phase 2 trails. In addition to that, we should be receiving 700,000 on the Jance Johnson Ranch acquisition, but our grant revenue is actually coming in a little slower typically than projected, because it has to go through all sorts of different approval processes, and you'd only collect after you spend anyway. So if we spend less, we're going to collect less grant revenue generally. In terms of MMA capital spending, in terms of land purchases, the Eberhard purchase is in the budget, but the Johnson Ranch project is not in the budget. And as far as I know, that's likely to happen next year. So 8 million of land purchases. And then the non-land purchase, the budget is 9.5 million, which is very nice to see. So hopefully we'll spend at least 9 of that. So we would end the year with a healthy amount of like $30 million of bond funds, to go into the following year. So here now we get into the numbers game here. So maybe I'll point at some of these things that are hard to see. The first column here is the actual numbers from last year, this first column. The second column is my forecast for this year, which you've seen, and the third column is my forecast for next year, which we've already gone over. The remaining 28 years of 13 years on this page, at least, are my forecast. And let's go over some of the assumptions in that forecast, because they're at least interesting to me. First is that I'm expecting that it's going to be a large step up in OPEX. And I think that that's going to be justified, or at least tested in the FOSSUM analysis that's going on right now, because we haven't really fully staffed, or we're in the process, but we're not fully staffed the fire resiliency program, which is a huge program, a huge step up, and it's not going to end, it's going on forever. So, and second, we need to fully staff the MAA project so that we can spend 10 to 11 million of work a year. So I don't know what the amount is that we need to add on that, but I've assumed a step up of 3.5 million per year of spending. And so if you compare this amount of spending this year, including 1.5 million of pension prepayment, to 3 years out, that's an increase of 36% of spending. So that's a lot of money, and it takes the operating expenses up from 60% to 74% of tax revenue. Of course, we've always thought we were on our way to 90%, over time, to be like a normal government organization. But it's going to take a few years to get there, hopefully. So that's the first thing to note in the assumptions. And of course, on top of that, the tax revenue is projected beyond next year at 4% a year. But the key thing to look at is not the 4%, it's the 2% down below, which is, we're projecting that this is based on the operating expenses going up 2 percentage points faster than tax revenue. So if tax revenue instead of 4 is at 6, then OpEx should be at 8, to be consistent. So it's the forecast is not as conservative, let's say, as it looks, because that it's adjustable based on that 2%. Whatever the tax revenue is, the OpEx is 2% more. And you can see, or if you look at it, analyze this, you'll note that we can afford that we're still at running positive or neutral operating cash flow out 15 years from now, even increasing OpEx from 60% to 90% of tax revenue. So, and then the general fund CapEx use a base of 6.5 million. We've very seldom spent more than that, but we've got a lot of work to do. So we'll see if that's a reasonable assumption. One thing some things that I want to make sure they're in my report, but it is that I've got 10.5 million of storm damage CapEx here over the next 3 years. And of course, that wasn't in the budget or in the forecast a year ago. So that's quite a change. And then here, few years out, I've got 20 million in the forecast for new facilities, both the coastal field office and improvements or replacements of our current field offices, especially the Skyline field office, as I understand it. So that's in the forecast. Whether that's enough or too much, we'll see later, but at least that's in the forecast. And we're still, running positive operating cash flow. Do have bond proceeds, 25 million next year, and then each year thereafter, say 35 million. So that's in the assumed. Of course, that will depend on how much we spend. The land purchases, I'm assuming, are going to be very modest going forward. Of the original 300 million of estimated cost of the MAA projects, about half of that was land acquisitions. And that assumed, for example, a very large purchase from San Jose Water, which never, at least hasn't ever happened so far anyway. But we do have some, I'm told we have some redwood forests that are still may become available and will be active buyers if they do become available. So I've got some money in there every few years for significant land purchases, but most of it is non-land purchase CapEx. And even at the relatively low grant coverage of 12.5%, which we're running way above that now, as you know, we can still afford to spend 10 to 11 million a year on MAA, non-land acquisition MAA projects. And so, and I've got a little bubble in here for Highway 17 construction. I have no idea how that's going to work out, but I do have at least a small bubble of spending out in 27 and 28 to cover that. So I'm only showing here on the screen the next 15 years because the following 15 years, there's really, things just progress because we've got a model here that's pretty sustainable at these kind of assumptions. There's no tax rate issues. The 318 was what we promised as I don't know if we promised, but we projected as a maximum tax rate, and we're about half of that now. And the forecast shows us not getting anywhere near 318. Everything looks like we're in very good shape for the following 15 years. I think that our general fund debt, is fully paid off, about 20 years from now. And so we just have almost unlimited debt capacity, for actually borrowing if we need any general fund revenue for something or cash or something. So I think that's all I was planning to present. So any questions?
Okay,
I have a question.
Yep. Yes, go ahead, Director Gleason.
Yeah, if I understood this correctly, you showed the Measure AA CapEx going beyond $300 million. Am I correct in that? And is that something we can do?
Well, yeah, the grant revenue we're only going to have up to 300 million of bonds issued. But,
Okay, I see.
so we'll have net of the cost of selling the bonds, which is minor. We'll, on top of that, we'll have grant revenue and interest income.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
And in this forecast, that adds up to 78 million more dollars. So that covers part of the inflation issue, that we've talked about before. It may or may not be enough, but our grant program has been so successful lately that my assumption is that I'm being too conservative here on grants, and it'll probably be higher, but whatever, there's plenty of money left, that's for sure. We're not constrained by money on the MAA program. We're constrained, I think, by people or whatever.
Are you finished, Director Gleason?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Director Riffle.
Thank you, Mike, for your analysis and projections and overall positive report. I have a question that actually you've brought up, but I'd actually like to ask our staff, maybe starting with our general manager, because I think the only thing I've heard from our controller that concerns him is how can we utilize the cash that we have available to us in the most efficient way. And the fact that we are underspending, and I'm all for being frugal, I'm all for being good use of taxpayer money, but on the other hand, there's a lot of things we have on our list to do. So I'm just wondering if there could be some comments about, so what are the barriers to address what I think was the one thing that Mike brought up as kind of the yellow or red flag of, we've got the cash, but we're not able to get more things done.
So this is Ana Ruiz, General Manager. There's different ways that we are approaching that issue. But frankly, one of the biggest ways that we can really address it further is with the FOSM and the update that's coming up and the staffing that might project. Because there's other ways where we're also tackling this issue, master permits, programmatic permits, trying to streamline processes. And that helps carve away a little bit of the time. But if we really want to push more projects down the pipeline, then we really do need more staff. So I am really looking forward to the recommendations that are coming, and they're coming soon, September timeframe. And I'm expecting that there probably will be additional positions, not only in the field, but also in the different programs here to move projects from planning feasibility, design, construction documents, and then actual construction, because the construction piece is so quick in comparison. We were talking, we had the Alpine Trail Tour, and for that project, construction is taking about 6 weeks, but it took 5 years to get to that point. So anyway, we're looking at different ways to both be efficient with the staff that we have now, but then also grow that staff to do more.
So it really comes down to well, a big part of it is going to be what FOSM recommends. And Mike, I guess a question back for you. Have you been plugged into the FOSM process?
Oh, yeah.
Are they,
Yeah.
They looking at?
Yeah, we had, well, I was involved early, and I was involved in an update, and I think they haven't gotten to the presentation of actually making staffing recommendations, but they recognize that we need more staff for sure.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, one of the questions that the FOSM consultants is looking at our Measure AA progress, and what do they project us doing with the staff that we currently have, and how much more do we need to get to meet all the commitments that we've set out? Right.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Director Sear?
I just want to say thank you, Mike, for your thorough analysis. It's always amazing to me. You can, with great accuracy, project out, 30 years. And most of the operations I've seen, either groups and agencies, if they can stagger through next year, they're wonderful. So this is fantastic. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Don't ever look back at projections I made 10 years ago, because I do, and they're
Yes.
they're way off because tax revenue is so much greater than projected.
Mm. Yes.
So Mike, I was really happy to see the storm damage CapEx included here. And so that is, if I understand correctly, it's from the storm damage that was incurred this last year, right?
Mhm.
Not ongoing potential storm damage.
Oh, no. This was, as far as I know, this is what happened. It was
This is
pretty
what
horrific.
happened,
It was
yeah.
amazing, in fact.
So I guess my
Yeah.
question for you, and I think perhaps you've already answered it, is that we do have money available should something dramatic happen again in subsequent years that's rather unexpected, hard to plan for, like another
Mhm.
gigantic storm year.
Yeah, well, well, for sure. We've got plenty of reserves to handle. In this case, we're hoping that FEMA, covers 50 to 70% of the spending. But well, I'm sure we could handle it without that. I would prefer not to.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I find the most reassuring and satisfying by looking at this report is feeling that we do
Mhm.
have the reserves there should something really unexpected.
Yeah, and I think
come along.
typically at the end of the year, Stefan always shows, updates our reserves, and the categories are sometimes vague, but there's certainly money there for unexpected developments.
Good. Well, I echo Director Sears' thanks and.
Yeah, we've never had anything to this degree in the 45 years I've been here. I mean, we've obviously had storms, but nothing like $10 million worth of damage. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, we didn't own as much land back there too, so.
Yeah. Let's say, yeah, I mean, I would also commend, it's 10 kind of succinct, packed pages of a great, just a model of clarity on, what is going on. So I think.
I mean, you actually understand it? That's too bad. They don't need me anymore.
Well, you helped clarify it for us, so thank you. But yeah, and then I guess we're waiting. I mean, I don't know if we're waiting for the recommendations from POSM, but we'll have some decisions to make on, contracting out versus, how much we do in staff as well. But yeah, so that's a discussion to be had. Let's see, are there any public comments?
We do not have any oral comments.
Okay. Right. Yeah, well, I guess as you say, maybe the question is really, how much more should we want to do, or how aggressive do we want to be to take advantage of our situation? I guess is the question. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up question? You just prompted something. Our next agenda item, I believe, is approving our FY23-24 budget and basically our 3-year CIAP. And so, Stefan, maybe I address this to you. How closely is the CIAP budget and projection tied to Mike's numbers? I know the answer that I want, but I feel that I should ask that question.
Stefan Jaskolak, CFO. That's a good question. We built our CIAP and then Mike takes those numbers and puts haircuts on it based on past experience, right? And it's not a reflection of.
Yeah, I get that.
But things always change with us too, as far as throughout the year, as you can see with the performance of past years as well, where things do get pushed into the following year. So each time we make a 3-year rolling forecast on that with the best information that we have. I think all in all, in the net, and maybe that's the more important part, both of our forecasts are always in the plus, right? We either balance or we come out ahead.
Right.
Just because of our system limitations, we tend to budget more on full project expectations. Because we just don't know what's going to happen that's going to slow us down. There's always something, we know that, but we don't know which project is going to get hit, when, where, or how. So we budget, as far as that goes, more conservatively because we don't take the haircuts. Does that somewhat answer your question? I hope.
It's a start.
I used the 3-year thing. I would expect that my numbers for 3 years are going to be equal, if not more, than what's in. Because sometimes the third year and the CIAP are a little. The thinking doesn't go out that far sometimes.
Right.
You can see that, you know, the amount of money that's projected in the third year is pretty low compared to the first two. So you kind of decide, okay, some of that's probably going to slip, but we're not going to spend $3-4 million, you know, in a year on MAA. You know, we're going to find other things to do. So I think you'd find my numbers are probably higher, you know, if you looked at 3 or 4 years than what's in the CIAP.
But Mike, that's exactly the point that I'm
I don't
getting
think I
at.
haircut the long term. I may haircut the next year, but not the longer term.
Yeah. No, that's exactly my point, Mike, because I'm so happy. We've made a quantum leap going to 3-year budgeting. I mean, remember the days when we were lucky to have the year look out, and I'm so happy to see the 3-year. But you know, given the utility of your long range forecast, Mike, and 45 years of refining that, Stefan, going forward, how can we be, I don't know if the word is more aggressive, or how can we take the running room, the financial running room that Mike seems to be giving us, and not be so conservative in how we're planning our 3-year work? So I guess I'm just thinking, how can we get going a little bit more here?
The thing to keep in mind is that they're two completely different tools that interact with each other.
Yeah.
Right. Mike's cash forecast has a lot of percentages, a lot of assumptions tweaked with in the near future with actual expectations of certain things happening. Right. Whereas we look at the 3-year CIAP, we actually do project by project and year by year. It's more granular, it's more detailed as opposed to higher level.
Yeah.
So they're two different. Plus, we have ours is a budget module.
Yeah.
Versus a cash flow forecast projection.
Right.
So they do interact, but they have different purposes, if you will, and different granularity.
I think Kurt's asking, how come you don't project more work? Because we have the money to spend, money to pay for it.
Right.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying.
Right. And that's
I would say that's partly a resource loading capacity issue. Because we have kept I have to say, very strict to the FOSM projections for staffing. And we're at the limit now. And so now we're looking at, okay, what does that growth look like now for the next, 5-10 years, 5 years plus? And so my sense is there's going to be another ramp up. Probably not at the level of it was back in 2014, or who knows, maybe I'll be wrong. But there'll be another ramp up, and that'll bring in capacity to do much more than what we've been doing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't looking for an answer tonight. It was, I mean, I can see a trend here.
Right. And we keep working towards refining the 3 years, especially the third year out. The third year out's been the bigger challenge because that's almost like really projecting what are we going to do in 3 years from now, because we're also building this budget way ahead of time even. So it's more like 3.5 years. Right. That's been a little bit of the difficulty. But we keep improving. And then anecdotally, since we have the cash flow forecast projection up, it's got nothing to do with your question, but I was just up at the conference, the annual conference for the Government Finance Office Association. 30% of the municipalities across this country do not do any cash flow forecast, not even a 1, 3, or a 5 year. So Mike is light years ahead of anything.
Good controller.
Especially when you look at 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Kishimoto, could I ask one more quick following question? I really
Yes.
appreciate this conversation that's just been taking place. And I wanted to ask the general manager, given your statement that, we've stuck really with the FOSM in the last couple of years, that maybe that's actually constrained us a little bit when we started seeing that we were going to need more staff. And I'm wondering how that might inform our adherence, if you will, to this next FOSM, if, it's I don't know, what is it, a 10-year planning horizon?
Stefan, remind me, it's a 5-year granularity, but with broader projections beyond that.
Right, that's definitely how the first one was constructed, and that's what we anticipate for the second one. We waited almost 10 years to do the refresh. I could see a situation where we would accelerate that a little bit, and maybe after 5 or 6 years, when the granularity kind of runs out, do an evaluation, see if we're being constrained or not, perhaps, or do a refresh of the refresh.
I agree with that. I mean, it feels like it took us a couple of years to get to the point. I mean, we kind of realized we were maybe needing a little less constraint a couple of years ago, and it took us several years to get here to being able to start this new FOSM. So I think it would be advantageous to keep that in mind in this next round, that we maybe evaluate after 5 years. Take a look. Is it still good, or do we need a little more flexibility?
Exactly.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know. I think it's a good discussion. I mean, I do know it's kind of, I mean, just speaking from my experience, I know the first 10 years of, public service, was 10 years of budget cut after budget cut. I mean, and so I kind of was conservative myself, and did depend on FOSM as a Bible to kind of guide our growth. And so you're right. I guess at some point we need to look at the data that a controller gives us, and if necessary, maybe we'll adjust them.
I think, well, the grant revenue success has also changed the equation.
Yeah.
The fire program has changed the equation.
Yes, good point. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, do we need to take action on this? It does say to accept the controller's report. And did I ask for public comment? Yes. Okay, no public comment.
We did not have any public comment.
Okay. All right. So if there's no further questions, then I'll accept the motion.
Yes.
Well, no, we could do it either way, but that's what it says. You could go either way.
I'll be glad to second as your treasurer.
Okay. Good. All right. A motion and second, and yes. Roll call.
Director Christine Tucker.
Yes.
Director Riffle.
Yes.
President Kishimoto.
Yes.
Director McNiven.
Yes.
Director Seer.
Yes,
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. And then we're on to what we started to talk about, which is item number 8, the second hearing for the fiscal 23-24 budget and CIAP.
Good afternoon, Stefan Jaskulak, CFO. Yes, this is for the FY24 budget and capital action improvement and action plan. So the general manager's recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-24 budget and capital improvement action plan. The second part of the general manager's recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving the classification and compensation plan for the fiscal year FY 2023-24. This is the budget in a complete overview, one page. It has all the revenues, all the other funding sources, and all the expenses across all 5 funds. Total revenues for all the 5 funds is projected at, or budgeted at, 83.7 million. We'll have other funding revenues of -800,000 based on all transfers, etc. And then expenses budgeted at 82 148.8 million. They'll give us a total change of fund balance of 148,000 in the debt service fund, and that is basically the excess of the levy over the debt service for Measure AA bonds. Are there any questions from the board regarding the projected budget, any items, line items, etc.?
See any questions? I think we did have a good discussion about it at the last meeting.
We did.
Yes, thank you. And is there any changes that you want to call to our attention?
There are no changes.
Okay,
No changes. Then I will forward to the table for the budget resolution, so that is to adopt the budget. And here you can see the total budgeted amounts by fund for all 5 funds, again for the 82.8 million. Also adopting the proposed 3-year capital improvement action plan for all the way through FY26. And then project schedule for implementation FY24 shall be included in the FY24 proposed budget.
okay. Oh,
Okay, so yeah, so this evening there's 2 resolutions before you. One of them is the budget resolution. The other one is the position classification and compensation resolution, which includes 3% salary adjustment for classification under the Field Employees Association and the Office Supervisory and Management Employees.
okay, very good. See, I didn't see any questions so far. And is there any public comment, Madam Clerk?
President Kishimoto, we do not have any. Thank you.
Okay. Well, any further discussion, or I accept a motion?
I will be glad to move a motion as chair of the ABC that looked very thoroughly at this, and we highly recommend it. And again, thanks staff for incredible work. And,
I'll second that.
Great. We have a motion and second, and ready for roll call.
Director Christine Tucker?
Yes.
Director Rofel?
yes.
President Kishimoto?
Yes.
Director McNiven?
Yes.
Director Seer?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Director Gleason?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Well,
By the committee.
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. Thank you to the ABC committee
Made our
and
job
to our
so
staff.
easy.
Yeah. All right. And yes, and possibly next year with the new FOSM, there will be a lot more exciting discussion, I think.
Well, it was exciting. It was exciting this year. What do you mean?
Thank you.
Okay, it is exciting. You're right. It's an amazing budget, really.
Mhm.
It really is an amazing budget. Okay, item number 9 is the 2022 greenhouse gas inventory report and next steps.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sophie Crystal. I'm the management analyst in the Natural Resources Department. And I'll be presenting tonight on the greenhouse gas inventory update. All right, everything looks good. So the general manager's recommendation for the report tonight is simply to receive the report on the greenhouse gas emissions for 2022 and progress toward our goals set out in the climate action plan and climate policy. And there is no board action required tonight. It is just the presentation. So the outline of my presentation, I'm going to talk sort of in 3 sections. First, I'm going to give everyone either a refresher or an introduction, depending on whether you're a new board member, on the climate action plan and climate policy. Then we'll go over the results of the 2022 greenhouse gas inventory. And finally, we'll take a look forward at the future of the climate program. So the climate action plan was approved by the board in 2018, and it defines the scope of our greenhouse gas inventory. It also provides a list of emissions reductions actions that we can pull from every year, and that's broken up by department and work program. And it enunciates the goals that we have for reducing our administrative emissions. And those goals are set by the climate policy. But our climate action plan is the tool that helps us reach those goals. And they are set in relation to a baseline in 2016. So we want to see 20% reductions by 2022, 40% by 2030, 80% by 2050. And we measure our progress against these goals using a biannual greenhouse gas inventory. The inventory looks at 4 different sectors in administrative emissions, and the administrative emissions sectors are the ones that are held to those percentage reduction goals. They're sectors that are common to local government inventories, and this includes fleet and business travel, employee commutes, facilities, and residences. And then we also have non-administrative emissions that we do measure, but are not held to those percent reduction goals. We still want to reduce those emissions to the extent feasible, but we don't have any numerical goals for that. And those are sectors that are more specific to Mid-Penn, and they are visitors, transportation, and livestock emissions. The climate policy was also approved by the board in 2018, along with the climate action plan. It is policy number 16 in our resource management policies, if you want to look that up. And there are 5 parts to it. The first is to reduce administrative greenhouse gas emissions according to those percent reduction goals that I just showed you. We also want to reduce our non-administrative greenhouse gas emissions, as I mentioned, to the extent feasible. We are trying to increase carbon sequestration and minimize release of carbon due to wildfire. And we are preparing for impacts and increasing the resilience of natural systems and infrastructure to climate change. And lastly, we want to lead by example and support initiatives for reducing impacts and increasing resilience. And these are paraphrased from the policy, but this is the gist of it. All right, so now we can move on to the greenhouse gas inventory. Before we get into numbers, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page with a few terms and abbreviations. Of course, we have greenhouse gas, GHGs, and this is any of several gases that form a heat trapping blanket around our planet and contribute to climate change. That includes carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. And all of these are accounted for in our greenhouse gas inventory. A metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent is the standardized unit that we use to measure greenhouse gases of all types. So it allows us to compare, say, methane with carbon dioxide with a single unit. So for example, carbon dioxide is 1 CO2 equivalent, and we calculate methane as 28 carbon dioxide equivalents. And this is dependent on how long they remain in the atmosphere and what their radiative forcing is, how much heat they trap. And lastly, we have emissions factors. EF is the abbreviation there, and that's a number that's used to convert directly measurable data into greenhouse gas emissions. So an example would be 8.8 kilograms of CO2e per gallon of gasoline. All right, so now we have the overview of our 2022 inventory. We exceeded our goal of 20% for 2022, and we have reached 30% reductions below our baseline. So this graph shows in the hatched columns, those are our goals, and you can see for the 2022 actuals in blue in the middle there, the hatched extends above where our actuals are. So we are making good progress against our goals. If we look at a breakdown of the different 4 sectors within our administrative emissions, you can see that vehicles, equipment, and business travel makes up nearly half of our emissions, employee commute about a quarter, and facilities and tenant residences make up the remainder. So now going sector by sector, vehicles, equipment, and business travel emissions have decreased 25% since our baseline in 2016. The primary contributing factors to this are that, firstly, we offset all of our air travel every year by purchasing carbon offsets. Other business travel has also decreased significantly beginning in COVID, but sustaining that beyond the shelter-in-place ordinances as there are more teleconferencing options available for meetings and conferences and that sort of thing. There's also been a large decrease in diesel emissions because we are using renewable diesel for fueling our vehicles, and that has about 1/3 of the carbon footprint from conventional fossil diesel. And there's also been slight reductions in gasoline emissions, somewhat due to having shorter maintenance and patrol routes after we opened the New South area office in 2021. Looking at employee commute emissions, there's been a 42% decrease in those since baseline. That is largely due to the telecommuting options that we have now, which allows administrative staff to work up to 3 days a week from home, as well as increasing options for flexible scheduling like 980 and 410 schedules for field staff. There's also been small contributions from things like more staff driving electric vehicles and commuter benefits that we offer, including reduced price electric vehicle charging at our offices, benefits for helping pay for public transit costs, a stipend for carpooling or biking, that sort of thing. Going on to facilities, we've seen a little bit of a ping pong in our facilities emissions. In 2020, they were actually higher than our baseline, and they've come back down again for a 10% decrease from baseline. This is due to the acquisition and subsequent remodel of this building, 5050 El Camino. In 2020, we had not yet remodeled 5050, and we were operating both that building and 330 Distal at the same time, so our emissions related to those operations were very high. In 2022, we were still operating 330 and 5050 simultaneously, but we had done the remodel, which, as you'll see in my next slide, the energy efficiency of this building improved astronomically. So I laid out some numbers here. We're looking at a comparison of energy consumption per square foot, and I did it that way because the two buildings are such different sizes. But I have numbers here for 5050, both pre and post remodel, as well as 330 Distal. And you can see those numbers for the percent difference in energy consumption for those buildings per square foot is pretty significant. So I know we put a lot of investment into making this building energy efficient. And while I haven't run the numbers, that's their job. On the budget side of things, I can say that from an energy and greenhouse gas perspective, it is definitely paying off. And lastly, we have our tenant residence emissions, which have decreased 34% since 2016. And this is primarily due to switching over to renewable electricity plans. The other piece of this sector, the heating fuels, is much more difficult to change because most of our tenant residences are heated either with propane or wood. Electricity, of course, would be the most greenhouse gas efficient, but where most of them are in rural places, it is not really a reliable or affordable way to heat your home. So they are dependent on propane and wood for those. So now we can take a look forward into fiscal year 2024 and look at some of the climate action plan items that we have on the docket for that. We are about to acquire and test the utility of 2 electric trucks. We have a couple, I believe they are Chevy Silverados coming up in fiscal year 24. And those will allow us to see how those electric vehicles fare for the type of operations that we need them for. We're also working with a consultant to develop a fleet transition and decarbonization plan. So more of a long-term outlook of how we can transition our fleet over to more electric vehicles. And this is important both from a greenhouse gas perspective and also from a California policy perspective, because government agencies, including special districts, are going to be limited in the types of vehicles that they can purchase beginning fairly soon. You'll notice that the biggest items on this table are all fleet focused. This is because like I showed earlier in that pie chart, the fleet is about half of our administrative emissions. And so taking a nice chunk out of those emissions will help us a long way toward our goals. All right, I'm going to briefly go through some non-administrative emissions, and then I'll move on to the climate program outlook. So first part of non-administrative emissions is livestock, and there's been a 38% decrease in that since 2016. This is primarily due to the environmental conditions. We manage the number of cattle that our tenants graze year to year, depending on what the forage is available on the landscape. And so in a drought year like 2022, we do not allow as many cattle to be out there grazing, and so we have lower emissions. And just as a reminder for some context, one of the reasons that we do cattle grazing are as a tool in our toolbox, along with other conservation tools to manage fuel loads and grassland biodiversity, and also to uphold our coastside mission there, which on the slide quotes that it includes preserving rural character and encouraging viable agricultural use of land resources. Now looking at visitor transportation, I want to point out this is just a snapshot of our transportation. It is only 6 parking lots at 6 preserves, so it's really a small subset of our visitor emissions, but it gives us a sense of how those have changed over time. And you can see that our visitor emissions peaked in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, and they have come down somewhat since then, but are still higher than they were in 2018. And you'll also notice that Looking there at the x-axis, Rancho San Antonio alone has visitor emissions close to 4,000 metric tons of CO2e, which is practically 4 times more than our administrative emissions. So it is significant. Of course, we're not going to shut down our preserves and prevent people from driving there. This is just something for us to be aware of as part of our greenhouse gas emissions greater portfolio. All right, now moving on to the climate program outlook, looking into the future. Before I talk about the different pieces of the climate program, I want to quickly put our emissions into perspective. So in 2022, our administrative emissions equaled, and for you number folks, it was 1,034 tons of CO2e. That is equivalent to 1 full jumbo jet flying from San Francisco to London and back. It's equivalent to 230 gas-powered cars driven for a year, 130 average US homes energy use for a year, or for a power plant, if it's a natural gas power plant, operation for less than a day, and if it's a coal power plant, operation for less than 2.5 hours. So our emissions, all things considered, are a pretty small drop in the global bucket. This isn't to say that we shouldn't reduce them, because we should. Every bit counts, but there are 2 other components of our climate program that I am hoping to see grow in the coming years. So on average, our lands sequester a ton per acre of CO2e every year. And when you consider the fact that we manage over 65,000 acres of land, soon to be almost 70,000 acres of land, that's a significant amount of sequestration and storage. And I believe that in terms of climate, our land is our greatest asset. So I want to show this little Venn diagram here again of our climate program areas. We have greenhouse gas reduction, but then we also have sequestration and storage and adaptation and resilience. So I'm going to speak to these 2 other areas as well. So I want to clarify first some definitions. Adaptation and resilience are 2 terms that are often used somewhat interchangeably, but they are different concepts. Adaptation refers to changes made within a system that reduce risk and potential impacts, in this case from climate change. And the image there on the slide is of willow stakes planted alongside a stream. And when those trees grow up, they will shade the stream, they will protect it and the aquatic life within it from temperature fluctuations in hot weather. They will create sinuosity and complexity of the riverbed and create habitat in that way. And those will increase the resilience of that ecosystem, which brings me to the second concept, resilience, which is the ability of a system to recover, adapt, and thrive after experiencing a disturbance. And resilience is often the goal of adaptation activities. And the photo that I used there is a picture I took in Big Basin of the redwood trees regenerating through what's called epicormic sprouting, where they put out new branches straight from the trunk after, in this case, a fire disturbance. So we actually have some adaptation and resilience projects already going at MidPen, or they have gone. In 2021, we finished our Santa Cruz Mountains Vulnerability Assessment, which was a project we did in partnership with the Santa Cruz Mountains Stewardship Network. We worked with a consultant on that to model climate changes out through 2060 for the whole Santa Cruz bioregion, shown there on the screen. And we assessed the climate vulnerability and received recommendations for adaptation actions for select habitats and species. This was later applied to an updated version of the fuel reduction prioritization algorithm, which I believe you all approved earlier this year, to help us select areas that are likely to see either the most impact from climate change and therefore need attention quickly, or areas that are the lowest anticipated impact from climate change and then can therefore serve as refugia from habitat or from impact. There's also other programs. Of course, I mentioned fire already. There's forest health work that we do, watershed health work, integrated pest management. All of these things help contribute to the resilience of our ecosystems. And there are also future opportunities for incorporating resilience into infrastructure projects and water supply. Next, we're going to move on to carbon sequestration and storage. So again, these are 2 terms that are sometimes used interchangeably, but they are different. So sequestration is the process of removing carbon from the atmosphere, and storage refers to the amount of carbon that has been removed and is kept in a more inert form. So Carbon sequestration is typically done through photosynthesis by plants, algae, and some microorganisms. And then it's stored in short-term and long-term reservoirs. Short-term things like annual grasses or even animals are short-term carbon storage, and long-term like long-lived trees such as redwoods or soil. So carbon sequestration and storage projects that have been going on at MidPen include a study in 2022 modeling the carbon sequestration and storage in the San Gregorio watershed. In 2020, we did a carbon farming plan for the Blue Brush rangeland property in Prisima Creek Redwoods, and that led to one of these upcoming projects, which will take off in fiscal year 25. And that is a study of the impacts of biochar application to grassland. So biochar is a charcoal-like product that has very inert carbon. It does not release its carbon into the atmosphere for a very long time. And so applied to grassland, it could potentially be a sequestration enhancement tool, but we want to be sure that we know it's not going to have negative impacts to the biodiversity or other aspects of grassland health before we go out and do that. And then lastly, we have carbon monitoring, which will occur as part of the La Honda Creek Restoration Forestry Pilot Project, where we'll take a baseline of what the carbon is there. And as we proceed with forest treatments over the years, we will continue to monitor the carbon and the impacts of those treatments on carbon storage and sequestration. And the last thing that I have is another thing looking forward for creating a broader strategy similar to the climate action plan, where we would identify and prioritize both existing work and potential nexes with climate change across the district, create a menu of actions that we can take through that, and make sure that we are setting goals like we've set in the climate action plan to hold ourselves accountable to implementing these projects and making real progress on adaptation, resilience, sequestration, and storage. And with that, I'll put the general manager's recommendation up once more, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Wow. I know it's quite I think it's quite a masterpiece, actually. I really enjoyed reading it. But yeah, why don't we take questions first? Yes. Okay, why don't we start with
Yeah, total masterpiece. That's a great word for it. Sophie, would you put that slide, the looking forward slide back up?
This one?
Yeah, these are all excellent things to think about moving forward. And I'm wondering, would it make sense, preserve by preserve, to look at or to set goals for increasing carbon storage and sequestration for each preserve? Is that something you thought about or feasible?
That is one way that we could approach it. We have sort of high level modeling that looks district-wide and preserve by preserve. I think that was done in 2018 by one of our GIS analysts, actually. And so that is one way that we could approach it. I will say that actually affecting carbon cycling, so pulling levers to change the processes of sequestration, is very challenging. There's not a whole lot that is simple to do with that, and it can take a very long time to show effects. So when we're looking at carbon sequestration and storage, one of the areas that I see as highest importance is actually managing for the resilience of carbon that's already stored on the landscape. So a big part of that is our fire program, and making sure that the forests, particularly conifer forests, which store the most carbon of any type of ecosystem in our preserves, that those are protected from catastrophic loss, either from fire or potentially insect damage or other mechanisms that may be affected by climate change.
I think where I'm going with this is we're going to own these lands forever.
Mm-hmm.
So we have time to perhaps make some of those long-term investments in sequestration techniques, things that we could do. So just wondering whether that's something that's on the horizon or could be on our something that we think about moving forward.
Yeah. And I think I had two examples in my slides with the La Honda Forestry Project. That's one example, and the biochar as well. And those are not exactly preserve by preserve. They're more habitat by habitat or site by site. But yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Director Whipple.
Yeah, a couple. First of all, Sophie, thank you for the excellent report. I look forward to these every 2 years, and I appreciate also your passion and exuberance for this. So that's always.
I try.
helpful. Thank you. Yeah. And overall, it sounds like we've done pretty well, and we're doing well. But on page 5 of the report, it takes a look at 2030, which looks achievable, but then it looks at 2050,
Mhm.
which I have no idea how we're going to do that. And
Yes.
I mean, that's incredible change of how we're going to get down to that. And I'm not sure, I know that's not too far in the, well, 2050 sounds like a long time away, but it's going to come fast. I mean, so I'm not sure I'm seeing in this some of the major changes that we need to be thinking about, or not maybe even haven't thought yet about, of how we're going to get there. So if there's any part of your report that I found a little bit lacking, that was that longer term, what are some big things we're going to have to start thinking about? So
Yeah, I think you're right. There is something missing there, and one of the big things that I think is missing is our understanding and knowledge of what the technologies that are going to be available will be by that point. Up until this point, for example, our fleet has really been constrained by the available technologies and what we can purchase that will meet our needs in the field for our rangers and our maintenance staff particularly. And those types of vehicles are just starting to come online. And we weren't sure even 5 years ago if that was something that would be available by 2025, 2030. So I think there is a lot of room for a little bit of wait and see, but I think you're right in that we also have to be prepared to make some pretty bold changes if it looks like we're not on track to meet those goals in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
So how do we solve that? I mean, are there people out there that can help us think about this, or are there, I just want to, I mean, let's not wait until 2040. I'm being facetious, but to figure this out. I think some of the stuff we've got to start now, right?
Are you asking about anticipating available technologies or other policy changes that we could make? Or
Yes.
Well, some ideas that I've heard floated are an increase in telecommuting. That, of course, takes a chunk out of our
Actually,
emissions
Sophie,
for.
I don't need you to invent now.
Okay,
It's
sorry.
it's just more about how can we get there?
Yeah.
And what is some things, and maybe if I could just plant the seed with you and with our general manager, just how do we start thinking pretty radically, I think, about getting out to that?
I think thinking radically is a good way to put
having
it. Yeah.
been in your position at another company, I learned that the low hanging fruit is pretty straightforward the first few years, and then it gets really hard.
Yeah,
And
I
we're
think that's the
starting to
point
get
that
into
we're at.
really hard. Yeah. And so I'm just a little bit prepared, just a little concerned that we're not thinking hard enough about those coming years, as good as this looks. So that would be the only thing is maybe is in the future is kind of, what are some pretty radical, and I think if anything, push us, people, you've got to start thinking about this. So that would be one thing, maybe just kind of a request. The second thing, and it kind of goes along with what Director Christine Tucker was talking about. If I think about the climate change and the effects that we are suffering through, and we haven't seen anything yet. I mean, given what's going on, I think people and our constituents are going to start looking at our lands not only as places to go hiking and as place to see wildlife, but really as a solution to this carbon equation. And I'm not sure how we necessarily, if you will, are selling the benefits of all of this work as a form of this carbon sequestration and monitoring. I'm really happy to see what we're doing, but how can we report this? How can we let our public know that, hey, this is yet another benefit of the investment you're making, with Midpen? Any thoughts about that?
That's part of what I would like to see with this sort of strategic plan is that by making measurable goals for ourselves. We don't have measurable goals yet for carbon sequestration or adaptation resilience. By creating those goals that we can actually hold ourselves accountable to, that will give us something to report out against and demonstrate that the work that we're doing has real impact.
Okay, and whether that be by preserve or just overall, district-wide,
Mhm.
I think that's going to be of interest to our constituents.
I agree.
Great, thank you. Oh, sorry, one other quick question.
Sure, sure.
The EV charging,
Mhm.
driving an electric vehicle myself, I think it's a great idea because I've often thought about, gosh, can I get back from there? Now, would that be something that we would provide the infrastructure, but they would have to pay for, or we aren't thinking? Are we thinking about providing this?
Are you referring to EV charging at preserved parking lots?
Yes.
Yes, I think we would just be providing the infrastructure for that.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, I'm glad we're thinking that way. Thanks.
Okay, let's see, I have a few comments, I guess, so one is, I mean, I really love the whole flow of it. I mean, just for the administrative emissions, I mean, I'm so impressed that you can tell the whole organization has gotten behind the reducing the emissions from the fleets to, and then I love the fact that we're investing in like the tenants, the rental housing that we manage and such. So that is all very impressive that it's kind of all permeated to every corner of Midpen. So that's kind of thanks to the whole staff for thinking of that and for you for leading the charge there. And then yes, and then the fact that you're kind of looking at that the resilience and the sequestration and such is big. And I'm really excited about that because I mean I agree with you. I mean, that's if we limit ourselves just to reducing DHG of our building and such, it's very limited. It's good, but very limited. And then I guess maybe getting a little bit to what Director Riffle mentioned about our role in the whole Bay Area, but I think I asked this last time, but there's, I mean, if what role Midpen has to play in terms of like, if we think of the Bay Area as a net zero, could we become a net zero region? And, but you said that 1 acre can sequester one.
So it's an average of 1 metric ton of CO2e per acre per year, but that is averaged across all of the habitat types and ecosystems. So if we're looking at an acre of redwood forest, it's going to be a lot more than if we're looking at an acre of grassland.
I see.
So
But
that's
the
average to consider.
average resident, 7 million people is still like 11. Is it about, I don't know what the number is, 10 million. But so there's no way that the open space can offset that.
I don't think alone that is a reasonable goal.
Yeah.
If we're looking at all of the open space in the Bay Area outside of Midpen as well, then
Right.
that's us closer.
But well, if you have time, it might be kind of interesting to kind of look at that Bay Area wide role. And then, I was also thinking, especially since we just followed on, two other masterpieces of presentation on, our financial situation. And if everyone kind of looked at the whole, cash flow projections and just instead of cash, we looked at carbon flows, and we looked at how much we're in the red every year as a society. I mean, we would be just totally shocked, right? We're just drawing down those. I mean, it's just not even a contest. So it's yeah, it would be interesting kind of just to look at it from that point of view. Yeah. Okay. Oh, where do you see Doug? His hand up?
It's right in the middle.
You see? Oh, okay. Director Gleason.
Sorry, was I hiding?
No, I'd say I could have. Yeah, now I know where to look. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks very much. This was a fantastic presentation and really fascinating report as well. There was all sorts of detail that you weren't able to get into that I loved. And also thank you for all the results in reducing emissions. I think that's great. I wanted to go back to one of the goals that are talked about, lead by example and support initiatives. And I'm particularly interested in this, I think goes a little towards what President Kishimoto was saying, but maybe even on a bigger scale, partnering to spread the reach of our efforts beyond Midpen, because, as you, I think, indicated, even if we drove our own emissions to zero, it doesn't make a big difference on the global scale or, even the California scale. So I'm looking at some of these things like the biochar and the La Honda forestry project and wondering, California has lots of similar lands, lots of forests and so forth. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for partnering outside to really leverage these opportunities to something much bigger?
I think you brought up two great examples. I'm particularly interested in the biochar one because it hasn't been well studied yet. And I think that's an example of a great opportunity that we have to partner with research institutions potentially and just get more sound science to guide land practitioners in how we manage our lands for climate resilience, because it is an emerging field. It's an area where it's difficult to study. You can't base actions based on past conditions because everything is changing. And so it's really an emerging field of research. And I think that's one area where if we can support that research, it will benefit us and it will benefit anyone else who's also trying to manage their land for similar purposes.
Yeah, that's great. I think, I would certainly put a high priority on wherever we can leverage those efforts outside and, in the biggest possible way. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to be presenting this to any other forums or conferences or?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, you should look for some forums to do that.
It certainly was a masterpiece. I really enjoyed reading it. And because I think it would be pretty easy for Midpen to sit back and say, oh, we have all these trees we've preserved, we're saving carbon, but to actively go into our administrative carbon use and successfully reduce it is really well done. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have any public comment, Madam Clerk?
President Kishimoto, we do not have any oral comments.
Okay, great. Well, we don't have to take a motion on this, but you heard our praise. It was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the discussion as well.
Okay, moving right along. Okay, we're at our last business item, which is the closure of our first portfolios, Measure AA.
Stefan Jaslik, CFO, here to present the closure of completed Measure AA portfolios number 18 and 23 and reallocating remaining funds to number 3. So the general manager's recommendation is by a 2/3 majority vote of the board of directors to adopt a resolution amending the expenditure plan for Measure AA for portfolios number 18, which is in the South Bay foothills, Saratoga to the Sea Trail and Wildlife Corridor, and number 23, Sierra Azul, Mount Amanam public access and interpretation projects, and then to allocate those remaining funds from these portfolios in the amount of $6,357,920 to portfolio number 3, Prisma Creek Redwoods, Prisma to the Sea Trail, Watershed Protection, and Conservation Grazing. This is a high-level overview map of where the 25 portfolios are, and you can see the 3 large stars of the ones that are affected by this proposal. All the way in the bottom right is number 23, that is the Mount Amanum portfolio. Then going up a little bit is number 18, that is Saratoga to the Sea portfolio, and then transferring all of that all the way to the top left, number 3 would be the Perisima portfolio. There are no outstanding or future priority actions projects for these two portfolios for number 18 and 23, which means that almost 6.4 million remains available. The proposed amendment to Board Policy 3.11 is then to reallocate 6.4 million from those two portfolios. This was presented to the Action Plan and Budget Committee on May 16th for their concurrence and voted in favor. And also to the Bond Oversight Committee on June 6th for their opinion, also voted in favor. So both committees support the General Manager's recommendation. This is according to the board policy to first get ABC concurrence and then to receive BOC opinion before coming before the full board tonight. Measure AA portfolio 18 allocated about 1.4 million for implementing two priority actions. One of them was the protection of wildlife corridor along Highway 9. And then the second priority action was to connect trails to Saratoga to Sea Trail and Skyline to the Sea Trail. San Jose Water Company granted City of Saratoga an easement over their watershed protection, over their watershed property, which is actually a known wildlife corridor. And that corridor includes a tributary to the Saratoga Creek. And then the district provided technical support and funding towards the trail, engineering design, environmental review, construction for the Saratoga to Skyline Trail. This is a picture of said trail. And this is an accounting of that portfolio. You can see the almost 1.4 million original allocation back in 2014. The two action items and the expenditures, leaving a remaining of 200,000 in that portfolio. Then in portfolio 23, there were three priority actions. First of all, open Mount Amanum. Secondly, open the Bay Area Ridge Trail and nearby connections. And then the third is to preserve additional open space and complete wildlife corridor. All three of those priority actions have been completed. This is an accounting of that portfolio. You can see there was almost 28 million allocated to that, and net of grants, about 21.8 was expended, leaving a little bit more than 6.1, almost 6.2 million remaining to be reallocated. If we look at where the money is proposed to go, that is portfolio number 3, there's allocated of 7.6 million, and there's 4 priority actions in that one. First of all, complete and open multi-use Perisima to Sea Trail connection. Second one is to preserve additional open space, which hasn't been completed with the acquisitions. Remove fish barriers and restore Lebedas Creek, that's in progress also, as well as restore ponds for endangered species in progress. The South Cowell purchase is part of this portfolio. Also the trail, Perisima to the Sea Trail, that component is part of this portfolio. This is a very high level. That's obviously not the original, not the proposed alignment. Those are more like this, more squiggly to follow the contours. So there's a lot of planning going into that, a lot of future projects planned for that. This is the accounting to date, and I think last meeting or the meeting before, we actually also allocated a little bit of interest income to make the portfolio whole for just for this fiscal year, so that taps out this portfolio at the moment. Pretty much all spent out, but we have quite a bit work to do to complete it. And that's lined up on this page. All the rest of the programs, the projects. There's site cleanup, a little bit more conservation on the upland, habitat enhancement, parking, quite a bit. There was a presentation on that recently. Trail, also fisheries restoration and a preserve comprehensive use and management plan. So total need in that portfolio is projected right now at about 7.7 million. So the proposed reallocation of about 6.4 million will get us close. There will be about 1.3 projected gap, but we will seek grant funding, and initial feedback is that this is very doable as far as the grant scenario to close that gap. So if we have the 7.6 original allocation, we'll be adding almost 6.4 to it. That'll bring us close to 14 million total allocation for this portfolio. And then I will open it up to questions from the board.
Okay. Questions? I think it's quite clear. Yeah, are there any public comments?
President Kishimoto, we do not have any oral comments.
Okay. I think it's been clearly presented. If you're ready for a motion. Vice President?
Well, I was just thinking, even if we don't get grant money, after Mike's presentation, we might feel that we've got a little impetus to finish the project regardless of grant money.
Mhm.
He's not nodding, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We will find the money one way or the other, right?
Okay.
All right. I will make a motion to support the general manager's recommendation.
Okay. Very good. And roll call, please.
Director Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
President Kishimoto,
Yes.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Seer,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I know. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it really is true. Each of the presentations and all the staff reports we've been getting, they're all so beautifully written and done. So thank you all. Okay, very good. We're moving right along. So committee reports. Anything?
Backpack. That's me.
Okay.
We had a meeting this month, and what we did was we took a first crack at the process of incorporating the service plan policy into the basic policy for the open space, very high level. Yeah. And we will come back to the board with a recommendation down the line.
Okay. And BAE, we just,
Right. Well, we actually had our first BAE committee meeting earlier this evening, or this afternoon, I should say. We reviewed our policy and schedule for this year, and we are going to be proceeding very similar to what we did last year. So stay tuned. And by the way, on the committee is Director McNiven and Director Kishimoto and myself. And I just want to take this time to thank our district clerk and our HR department for all of their assistance in helping us move forward as a committee, not only to date, but ongoing, since this is about a 5-month process. So thank you.
and the board should be getting calendar invites to the scheduled meetings, right? Yeah.
Yes, I will go ahead and add those to the master calendar and then set those.
Okay, great. Okay, staff reports. Our CFO.
I promise this is the last time tonight. I just want to give you a quick overview of the FOSM refresh. It's come up a few times this evening. So to date, it started with kickoff and then interviews with management team, executive management, et cetera, and project managers. About 25 people, individual interviews, followed by interviews with all the board members individually. After that, there were 8 focus groups, ranging anywhere from about 10 to 14 participants in each group. So if I added on the back of the envelope, that means about 125 people were probably interviewed aside from board members. So that's about 2/3 of our workforce. So it's very thorough. Subsequent to that, I've received a list of 19 items of documentation that will help Baker Tilly in further assessing, reviewing, analyzing, et cetera. And I'm almost completed with that list, providing that to them. And last Monday, General Manager, Controller, and I had an update meeting with the main Baker Tilly team, about an hour-and-a-half meeting, where they presented where they are, and also gave us the opportunity to ask further questions to sharpen it up a little bit. And their next steps, they will probably spend most of the rest of this month and into July reviewing, synthesizing, analyzing, group discussions within themselves, within their team, et cetera, to start formulating some models. And I would anticipate another update either internally for us, probably late July, maybe early August, thereabouts. And then still on track for initial recommendations by September, after which reports will be fine-tuned and finalized and presented, et cetera. So long story short, we're on track. About 2/3 of people have been included so far, and it's all working well as far as that goes.
Good. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Brian Malone, Assistant General Manager. Just wanted to provide a brief update on Bear Creek Stables. I know we've been providing updates as we go along. And it's a little bit old news, but we successfully transitioned to a new operator on the 1st. So Chaparral has been operating the Bear Creek Stables. There was a transition period that was agreed to in a court order. And the previous operator had 2 weekends to remove their stuff. We're still discussing some details of that, but basically we've transitioned to operation. Chaparral is in place and working to get the place back up to full operation. Probably won't start programming until at least next month, maybe a little bit further delay to get everything in place, but everything's I wouldn't say totally smoothly, but everything has progressed and we've successfully made the transition.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, and I just also want to say some thank yous to staff. The field staff, both the ranger staff and the maintenance staff have been really involved in working on the water system and really in making sure that this transition, we've had staffs on site the first day of operation, and then both of the days where Pamela Ashford was allowed to come and remove her personal possessions. Omar Smith has been really integral to the whole operation, and Brandon Stewart has been leading the entire transition through this process. And then, of course, we couldn't do it without our legal counsel, both Hillary Stevenson and Egan. I'm going to forget Egan's last name. Oh, okay. And then, it's really been a group effort that everyone has chipped in. And then, of course, our planning and our engineering construction staff that are trying to work through the process for the permitting of the stables improvements. So a huge agency effort and a great milestone that we've reached.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. A huge thank you for all the major efforts. Yeah.
Good evening. This is Ana Ruiz, General Manager. Just a few updates. On the 31st, I think a few of you attended our Leadership Academy graduation ceremony and presentations. We had 15 members of staff graduate this year from that academy. It went very well. The presentations were extraordinary. And in fact, about 2 weeks after that, I met with our Human Resources Department to talk about some of the recommendations from one of the presentation on how to improve upon our staff recognition event. So moving some of those recommendations forward already. We held 2 site tours of Alpine Trail, the bypass trail. And I want to thank Brian Apple, Eric Vick, and we met up with a number of field staff out on site who were actively constructing and finishing the work for this year. And we had a number of board members attend, and it was a fabulous day. The trail is beautiful. It's coming along beautifully. I think everyone who will be able to experience it will enjoy it tremendously. A little more work left for this upcoming spring, and then we'll be able to open it to the public. And then finally, I attended the LAFCO 60th anniversary with our board president, and she can speak more to that. Yes.
Real quick, Corey Skinner, Public Affairs Manager. I just got word today that NBC Bay Area will be rerunning our 50 to Forever documentary on Sunday, July 2nd. So look for that 8 p.m., I believe.
Okay, let's see. Director reports. Dr. Sear.
Three things. Hannah stole my thunder. I was going to comment on the Leadership Academy, which I thought was really, really fascinating. And to see the teaming of folks across departments, and then they were cooperatively able to figure out what they wanted as goals and then how to get there and do a presentation. I thought it was very, very well done. And I was very impressed with the Alpine Road, and especially when they said off here to the left is what this land looked like when we started. But you couldn't see the land at all because it was all vegetation. And to get some sense of this being staked out, cleared, then the trail pad beginning to put in place, figuring out on the fly whether I come down here and make this bigger turn with the machine, or do I make a tighter turn and a slightly different angle, and so forth. It was really very impressive. We had the stroll quite a ways into where the 2 different teams were operating, but it was a great, personally, I really appreciated being able to see staff on the job and working hard and seeming to really be proud of what they were doing. And it was excellent. 2 more things. One, next week, I'm leaving Monday to attend the Parks and Open Space Forum at Lake County Parks in Illinois. They've hosted before, and before COVID, it was something that I was able to attend annually and got a tremendous amount out of. Larry and I went to the last one together. And then the last one, I was strolling around seeing the 4 people who were left upstairs. Most people were off doing other things, either out in the field or this was one of their days they were working from home. But I ran into Brianna Kahn, who is one of our brand new HR interns. And what an effervescent young woman. And I thought she was just so bubbly and so excited to be here. And her comment was part of her onboarding was having to go through interviews and so forth. And she happened to be parallel to process for potential new rangers. And she said, man, they have to do a whole heck of a lot more. So I just thought that was an interesting comment. And if you get an opportunity to meet her, she's really one example of the kind of interns that we're able to attract. And hopefully over time, you can keep a number of them in different positions. So thank you.
Yeah.
So I am on the Mountain Spotlight Stewardship Program that the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Program. Well, it's getting late. And last time we went to Corte Madera and Hudded Park to learn about forest health and wildfire resiliency. It was run by our wonderful Midpen staff, and it was really good. I learned a tremendous amount. And it's in my backyard. It was so nice. And last night, Zoe and I presented to the Woodside Town Council with Josh Hugg. I think it went pretty well. They really appreciated that we made the effort to go out there. Let's see. I did the Alpine Road, the Alpine Trail tour, and I was at the leadership celebration, which was really nice. And do I mention we have an ad hoc committee to form a public access working group for Portola Valley? So we'll bring that to the board next week. That's our ad hoc committee. We selected 10 people to interview. So
Oh, really?
get ready.
Okay. Oh, wow. You've been busy. Okay. I'm going to go last. So go ahead.
Okay, great, thanks. A lot of this has already been mentioned, but attended the Leadership Academy, and I guess this is the 5th class. Yeah, which is, so I won't repeat what everybody said. I was impressed as well. I had a chance to table with our staff at the Sunnyvale Arts and Wine Festival, since Sunnyvale is now part of my ward. So it was great to have a chance to see that portion of my ward. The tour of Alpine Road, I really enjoyed that. And what I especially enjoyed is meeting staff that we don't have a chance to meet very often, just to see them at their craft. And I think, as we commented, they are almost more than artists than technicians. It was just great to see them out working, and very passionate and talented. So, so thank you for arranging that tour. And then I will be tabling at the Rancho San Antonio Open Space Preserve about rodenticide use. So that's going to be coming up on Saturday morning. So looking forward to that. And I wish we didn't have to do that, but I think it's necessary. So, thank you.
All right, I think everything I've been doing has been already mentioned. I will simply say, though, that I do think that the Woodside Town Council presentation went well last night. And we had a lovely offer from the Woodside mayor to say that they would very much like to be part of the Bay to the Sea Trail planning effort, should that trail find its way through Woodside. So they very much appreciated the presentation on that, and we're excited by it. So yes, the pod, the lab pack, lots going on.
Okay. Let's see, Director Gleason.
Yeah, so on Memorial Day, I attended a docent-led hike with a pretty large group of visitors at Waterwheel Creek in Montebello, and that was a great day. Docents are fantastic as always, and we got another really nice view of a great wildflower season. Then on the 1st of June, I attended the Pride flag raising at our headquarters, and I wanted to thank the staff for initiating and following through on that, as well as the previous board for the approvals that made that possible. 3rd of June, this is not a Midpen event, but I participated in a project for National Trails Day, where the Santa Cruz Mountains Trail Stewardship organized 19 events with a whole bunch of land managers, and they drew over 600 volunteers to that set of events. So that was really fantastic, and I think a pretty audacious effort to engage people on the land. And then I did go to the Alpine Bypass Trail visit. So thanks to Brian Apple, Brandon, and Anna for hosting that. And as Kurt said, it was great to meet Eric and the trail crew. I really love the work that they're doing there. And I think that, you look at that trail section that will really connect people to nature. And then finally, in the first few days after the Bear Creek transition, I rode my bike up there a couple of times, spoke to a number of boarders. People were really happy to see that change come. And I want to echo Brian's thanks to everybody who's been involved, but really give special thanks to Omar, because I think every boarder I've spoken to has had just great things to say about his support and his caring for Bear Creek and for them. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, let's see. Oh my gosh, everyone's been super busy. Let's see, to add to that, yeah, we actually had a brown bag lunch presentation today. And that actually Mike Williams invited Vida Verde to speak, and that was a really great presentation. And yeah, Director Sear came, so thank you for coming. And then yes, General Manager mentioned the LAFCO. There was a LAFCO luncheon. It was a 60th anniversary, which was attended by the founding legislature and a number of other people who were, and as you know, LAFCO plays a huge role in protecting the open space, especially in South County and Santa Clara County, as well as San Mateo. So that was good, and that was followed by a long LAFCO meeting on basically, there was a application by one of the cities on that very topic. So. And let me see, and then I went to a BCDC meeting on June 1st and a special districts meeting for June 5th. And actually, okay, and yes, and let me see. And then tomorrow, I'll be going to Los Altos Hills for a presentation with Josh Hugg. And I think that is about it. So thank you all for a very productive meeting, and that meeting is adjourned. Okay.
It's snappy tonight.